Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. In a galaxy as big and as vast as this one, it's hardly surprising that amongst the myriad of civilizations that live alongside humanity within the Federation, there are some peculiar outlier technologies that aren't necessarily always in line with what's considered the stereotypical norm. And today we're going to discuss some of the more peculiar weapons produced in the galaxy. And of course, if you think of any that I don't put on this list, let me know in the comment section down below, because this is by far not going to be comprehensive. Now, as we know, in Star Trek, most weapons are just your average run-of-the-mill, everyday phaser, disruptor, plasma weapon, photon torpedoes, and as in many ways weird as those weapons are by modern eyes, they're not exactly even up there with some of the strange that can exist in the wider galaxy. So in no particular order, let's look at some of the more peculiar. Let's start with the Ferengi Energy Whip. This relatively seldom seen but somewhat famous weapon is pretty unique to the Ferengi. Nothing else quite like it exists. Of course, most civilizations have made whips. Humans have whips for both torture purposes, somewhat military purposes in more extreme scenarios, pleasure purposes and other reasons. The Ferengi Energy Whip is the first time we see a hybridized energy weapon and whip. It is first seen in the 22nd century and has a kind of a yellow hue to it. It is again seen when official contact is really made with the Ferengi and actually has a blue coloration. When the weapon is lashed, it emits an energy discharge that stuns the target. It's not known if it can actually be set to kill. It's also not known if it going from yellow to blue is something to do with settings, a different model of the weapon, or just an evolution of the technology. It is famous enough that Marauder Mo, who was a fictional character amongst the Ferengi, somewhat similar to He-Man, has his own line of action figures, and one of his personal weapons is the Energy Whip, where Quark owned one of these toys as a child. Just a little one that always seemed a little off to me as the next one is the Swarm handheld weapon you seen by the race in the Delta Quadrant, not the Ultimid beings, or machines more accurately. This weapon is a neuroelectric weapon that seems to just kind of shock you and cause very slow painful death. This is likely as a warning to others and kind of reminds me of the Zat Nicotel from Star Trek, just as from Stargate rather. Just as a Zide is kind of an odd weapon in Star Trek. It doesn't seem to fit the norm. Again, it's not known if this weapon has a more standard conventional setting. Next we have a Federation weapon, the Temporal Disruptor. This is a pretty outlier as well. It is a 29th century bomb used by the Temporal Integrity Commission. And it works by creating fractures in space-time to demolecularize its target. It's out of phase with normal space-time when it is planted, and as a result cannot be seen or detected without highly specialized equipment, which it is actually noted that Borg technology of the 24th century is better at doing this than 29th century Federation technology, which just shows you how much more advanced the Borg are, even in the 24th century compared to the Federation. This weapon was used by a rogue and somewhat insane Captain Braxton to try to destroy the USS Voyager in the past because wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey reasons. Next we have the TR-116 rifle. Now I'm going to talk about two slight variants of this. There is the TR-116, which is the stock weapon developed by Starfleet Security to use in extreme environments. It was designed as a more mechanical, primitive alternative to energy-based weapons to be used under select circumstances. Energy weapons have infinite more benefits over projectile slug-throwing weapons, of course they do, but in certain environments they don't work very well, such as under dampening field conditions because they're purely energy-based, or originally under radiogenic environments. Starfleet was able to improve energy weapon protection and functionality, making these weapons kind of redundant and more of a collector's item rather than a standard issue weapon. The TR-116 arced back to 19th, 20th and 21st century weapons of Earth. It used a titanium bullet that was chemically projected. It would be a primitive weapon that would work no matter what, because it basically just, you ignite it, the cartridge explodes, fires the projectile out. The variant we want to discuss was actually modified by a Vulcan who had gone a little nuts, and he attached a micro-transporter to the weapon along with an advanced optical sight system, although the sight system may have been standard issue, I'm not entirely sure, allowing him to see through walls and target people, and then use that to target the micro-transporter, which would beam the projectile once fired with at least enough momentum to continue on to target and kill whoever he was intending on killing. In many ways, the perfect assassination weapon. In Section 31, you better be all over that shit. Next, we have Borg nanoprobes. Another unconventional weapon, but they are a weapon, although not in the conventional sense. They're used to turn other people into Borg, creating more drones, and drones are basically living weapons that are then used against other people to assimilate them further. They're also used to assimilate and absorb technology that the Borg are interested in, converting it into more Borg technology, helping them build their ships, repair their vessels, analyze and adapt, and generally to neutralize or destroy anything that is used against the Borg as a defensive system. They also have been demonstrated to be used in mines by the Borg, and they can be adapted into torpedoes, such as when they were used by Species 8472. We've also seen this technology more recently assimilated, pun intended, into Federation transporter technology to infect people and slowly assimilate countless millions of people, most likely. The technology may be unconventional, but it's definitely up there as a weird one. Next, we're going to go with the trusty Bat'leth. This is an ancient bladed weapon utilized by the Klingons. The reason it's pretty distinctive is most civilizations, humans, Vulcans, even Klingons and Romulans and Andorians, others, they come up with more or less the same weapons. You got bows and arrows, more or less invented by everybody. You got spears, pretty much everyone. Swords, very common. Axes and other handheld and stabbing weapons like knives, short axes, curved blades, scimitars, things like that. They're pretty standard, but no one has anything like a Bat'leth. The Bat'leth doesn't exist in any human culture. Nothing similar to it really exists. There's a few sort of pole arms and things like that that you could maybe argue are similar, but nothing quite the same. It is effectively a long curved blade in its stock form, although there are many variants in both size, material, curvature of the blade, number of like little spikes and stuff it has on it. It has two ends that can be used for decapitation. There are longer, straighter versions of it that have also been seen. It has usually 3 grip points on the back of it. It is a well-balanced weapon that can be used both as a slashing and stabbing, as well as, again, decapitation, as well as inflicting other very severe injuries, and particularly strong ones made from very hardened materials. The Klingons, prize this weapon. They've been seen to cut through other metals. So it is an art form, even done at a competition level within the Klingon society. It is a weapon that instills fear at just the sight of it, because every part of this thing is a weapon. Even being hit from the back of it, you're still being blunt force traumatized. It's a unique weapon, is the point. It's mainly not a very advanced one. Yeah, it's basically just a sharp piece of metal when you really get down to it. But the artistic use of it, the distinctive design, make it unique. Now that is my list of some of the more unusual weapons. Of course, there are many others that we can discuss. The Dominion's Polaron beam weapons that can penetrate shields, as well as the Xindi biomechanical sort of weapons that they had that could regenerate their power cells, as well as a multitude of other things that exist. But let me know in the comment section down below which ones you think are the weirdest and more exotic weapons used by the myriad of civilizations across the galaxies. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I do thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and bye-bye.